Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We are the Lost and Found Ministry podcast, and we are live recording in Simple Studios. I'm Clint Marker.
I'm Dave Garza.
I'm Dave Snyder.
And we are here to discuss some more of my testimony. So,
yes, we are.
I'm going to leave that over to Dave Snyder.
You definitely just jumped right in there, didn't you? It's habit for you.
Dude. It's habit, man. It's habit.
He can't just be quiet.
We are creatures of habit.
I can't.
He can't just be quiet. I don't know.
You know what?
Anyway, so we're talking about Dave Garza's testimony.
Hi, I'm Dave
All
Garza.
right, yeah, Dave Garza.
My
right
testimony.
there. All right,
Yeah.
Dave's testimony. So I believe last time we talked about Dave, you had some eye issues going on, and your parents, it was your parents at the time, and they were going through, trying to get you a whole bunch of surgeries done to try and correct this deal, and they found out that, every couple years you have to get surgeries, so you went through a lot of eye surgeries as a kid.
Yes.
And so, not to skip too far ahead, but then your parents ended up getting divorced and things started to go the wrong direction.
Yep.
And then you went to a boot camp academy essentially for a summer deal, which is Army related.
Yes,
which
it was.
We won't hold that against you.
Yeah, forgive me.
All right.
And it was 10 weeks of fun-filled time.
I'm gonna make you boys strong.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Major Vincent Whitterfoot Payne. Yeah,
That's
exactly. Anyway, so you went to this academy, and that's kind of where we kind of left off. You were getting ready to go into the next school year.
Yes.
And you had informed us that it didn't get any better because this was an attempt to try and make everything so you don't go the wrong direction.
That's right. So where this picks up is when I got out of the academy, I went to my mom's for 2 weeks. And because, like I said, that was a summer-long program. I ended up going to my mom's for just a couple weeks, and then, not by choice, I was informed that I was going to be moving with Dad, and which was intimidating. Love my dad, but Dad is not a screw-around type of feller. And so I knew that this was going to be a new adventure.
Right.
And considering I just got out of the military school and things weren't going so great.
So they felt like you needed more structure in your life than what your mom could provide at
absolutely.
the time. Not that she did a bad job.
No, Mom did a good job, but Mom's also 4'9" and a tiny little lady. And I
kind of walked over the situation.
Yes, a little bit. And
right.
Dad's 6 foot and
not so intimidating.
220.
Not so intimidating.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he was a Texas state judo champion. So I didn't backtalk that guy a lot. So anyway, and when I did, I don't remember it. No,
if you backtalked, you got backhanded.
Yeah,
that's where I was.
Yes. Well, something happened. I just always woke up in bed. I don't know. But
are you okay there, bud?
Hey, little fella.
Right.
I bet you won't do that again. But no. So I moved with my dad, and at this point, he had moved to Newton, Iowa, because he had previously worked for Pirelli Armstrong, and Pirelli went out of business, and he had been in Newton for just a couple years. He had taken a job with Maytag Appliances.
Okay.
And of course, that's their, where Maytag began, was in Newton.
Right.
And anyway, so this would have been, I think I was, I'm trying to remember. I think I was going into 8th grade at this point. And going into 8th grade, and I was a super punk of a kid. I was all into fighting. I was way into, nobody was going to tell me nothing. I mean,
did you try and find extracurricular activities to kind of be able to fight and make it acceptable?
Well, the problem was, we had done a little bit of boxing and found out I was extra aggressive. So that didn't work.
So you knocked out your sparring partners?
Well, when you start throwing your forehead around and stuff like that, and elbows and knees, and
So they said I had a record.
This was before MMA.
Yeah,
I was going to say, so UFC.
Yeah, pretty much. At least
almost.
See, so I feel like I'm a founding father.
Right.
That's not. But so yeah, I mean, we tried, man. I mean, I was in sports. You know, I played football. I played baseball. Baseball was really my thing. But football was fun, but it just wasn't really my thing.
Wasn't aggressive enough?
Well, baseball's not even that aggressive. But,
I know. I was trying to figure that out. Right. How you didn't like this.
It was one of those disciplined activities that worked for me, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
I always worked well on a team. I worked well in structure. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like you get into like boxing or anything like that, like a good option probably would have been martial arts.
Right.
But, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of that out there.
Martial arts, there's a lot more respect involved in it.
Right.
And if you weren't showing a lot of that, it wouldn't have been good.
No, I had zero respect. So, yeah, that would have just been a
You ever been
route.
laid out by a fifth-degree black belt?
Well, my father, I'm not sure what degree he got in judo, but yeah.
He laid you out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
anyway, keep going.
Anyway, so, you know, I got involved and I got down here in Newton and I started making some friends, not the right ones. Like right off the bat, I started running with, I remember there was this kid that lived across the street from me and, you know, it was just convenient. I didn't know anybody, and this kid that's in my grade lives directly across the street. Well, you know, this kid was heavy into smoking weed and drinking and, you know, I mean, I'm barely just about to turn 14, you know, and
how old was it? You said he was in your grade.
Yeah, he was in my grade, but I think he was one of those that was
held back.
Yeah, he had to be, man, because I'm pretty sure he's like a year and a half older than me. And, you know, he didn't have great influencers ahead of him. You know, I think the parents had some rough life going on, so there's a whole reason for all
man,
that.
the 9th grade, the best 4 years of my life.
Yeah, right. It was way cool, dude. But, you know, just started running around with him, and he did play baseball, though.
Okay.
And even, you know, in all of that. And so, you know, I kind of started smoking pot and got into smoking cigarettes already and started drinking. You know, that's what it turned into. I mean, if you called that drinking, you know, being a punk 13-year-old, you know, and
I drink Schlitz malt liquor because that's all I can get.
Right. You know, whatever could be found or stolen out of mom or dad's refrigerator. That's what we got. But, you know, it just, all in all, it was just a horrible direction I was heading. Right. And then, you know, started hanging out with him and doing all that stuff. Well, I started meeting other kids that were like-minded. And, you know, that is a small town.
Newton, you're talking.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there wasn't a lot to do. And that wasn't good. That was not good.
Negative things to do.
Yeah, negative things to do. And that's really just kind of how it all just started to really take off in such a horrible direction. I mean, you know, it went from running around with these guys to you know, hanging out and scooping the loop and
scooping the loop of Newton.
I'm telling you, they did.
Was that a happening scene?
For that town,
in the 1950s, that was the scene. Huh?
Yes, we got all of our we got our 44 Fords together and would rat race with our, you know, we'd roll our cigarettes up in our t-shirt pocket.
$100 truck.
That's right. Yeah. Brand
new. Anyway.
But yeah, so you know, it's just
scooping the loop of Newton.
Yep. Just nice. I mean, well, and that involved, you know, all these little fun teenager competitions over who's the tough guy. You know, I was the new guy, so I had to make a name for myself.
Right.
So I thought, you know, and, you know, just way bad attitude, man. I was so quick to punch someone in their face just because I could. Like, and it turned into a fun thing for me because I wasn't getting attention anywhere else.
Right.
I mean, in the long run, that's kind of not that dad wasn't there. Dad was there, but my father worked his butt off.
Right.
And this guy worked a lot of times 6-7 days a week, you know, and like what didn't help is a lot of times he'd work the graveyard shift So he'd be pulling out of the driveway at 10:30, and all my punk friends be coming in the house at 10:45. We had a spot to party all night,
Right.
you know, and it just was not a good situation for me, even though he was doing what he could. And then, you know, it just kind of started developing into stupid little stuff.
Did your dad ever suspect that this stuff was going on?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, he knew that I was, of course, not doing real great. I was struggling in school, but that was kind of just a normal thing at this point.
Right.
I was usually pretty good about not doing that ignorant stuff at school because I knew that was a sure way to get caught.
Right.
So I at least had some wisdom there. But, you know, I was really good about keeping all of that away. You know, I know he's not dumb. He knew.
I was going to say my parents had my number when it came to something doing stupid stuff.
Right. No,
they knew it.
He knew full on a lot of the stuff I was doing. And it just started to progress, man.
Right.
And it really did. It went from just hanging out, doing a lot of fighting, you know, trying to be the new tough guy in town and trying to do this and that too. Oh, well, you know, I got in trouble because I was breaking stuff, vandalizing stuff, got in trouble for fighting on multiple occasions, you know, started getting a name for myself in the local court system because that's the garbage I was pulling, you know. Got myself caught up and sent to a couple juvenile facilities for, you know, a 2-3 day stay for stupid stuff I had done.
So this was before your second experience with, you had alluded to last time that there was another time you went to a different academy.
Yes. No, this is all leading up to that.
Okay.
So in this second academy, we're almost there because this is what got us there.
Right.
Is all of this behavior.
Yep. I kind of figured that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, it got to the point, guys, I started running around with guys that were like 19, 20 years old because I was this little tough kid that, you know, would do anything. And for whatever reason, of course, I mean, real desirable dudes who are hanging out with a 14-year-old who are 19 and 20. So, you know, I wasn't thinking of it that way then. I was just like, oh, cool, dude. These guys can buy me alcohol. They can, you know, they can get me cigarettes. They can, you know, they can give me anything I want, man.
The stuff that I want to do.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And well, Dad caught on to that. And it got to the point where, like, you know, I would leave home on a Friday night and come back Wednesday.
Jeepers.
Like, not kidding.
That's almost running away from home.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there were many times I had the cops out looking for me, you know, or they'd find me and take me home. And, you know, my dad, I believe he knew a couple of the officers in town. So a lot of it was, hey, we got word David's here. Or my dad would just show up, take me home, you know, stuff like that. And, ultimately, it just got to the point where it was like, okay, something's got to change. Like,
was this legitimately, I don't want to go home? Or was this just like, I'm having fun, I just don't want to, you know? Like...
Yeah, I mean, there's coming up to this is that got really bad. What really set it off for me was, and you know, I'm not putting blame on him, but my dad had met this woman that he married. And I couldn't stand her. Nothing about her I liked. To this day, there's really not anything about her I like. It wasn't that my feelings were invalid.
Are they still together?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, there was just something about her as a person, not a good person, not any of those things. It just, I didn't care for her. You know, I was one of those kids. I really felt like she had stepped in and tried to act like my mom.
Oh, yeah.
And that wasn't going down with me.
Right.
So it was complete rebellion at this point because I'm like, oh, you're going to move in with this lady. You guys are married. You're getting a place to get, you know. Right. I didn't want nothing to do with it. My whole
life's changing right here.
Right. And know? I literally didn't want anything to do with it. I'm like, nope, I'm out. I'll take care of myself. You know, I got this. And so just all this trouble wrapping up, and like I said, in complete full rebellion here. I get informed that, well, the way they had to do it, because I wasn't going to go willingly, we were going to go check something out, I remember. And I can't remember how it was all, I thought it was like we were going on a family trip or something. I don't
You were going on a one-way trip.
Yeah, that's right. David's going to a farm where he can run free. And we pulled up to Kemper Military Academy in Boonville, Missouri.
It sounds exciting.
Yeah, this was thrilling. Yeah, and see, we had actually discussed me going to this place previously, because it was something your
parents discussed it.
No, me and my dad.
Part of it.
Me and my dad, and because I was interested in this, I had this huge goal that I wanted to go into the Marine Corps, and when I turned 18,
hold that against you either.
That's getting yelled at by a sailor over here.
That's right.
But it wasn't the Army, Dave.
It wasn't the Army.
There you
I'll
go.
give you that.
There you go. But so like that was a big thing for me, and this was a Marine Academy. Like that was their whole structure, was very much, we're building up warriors, we're building up all these tough guys, and this was so like that was appealing to me. I'm like, yeah, I can survive.
Yeah, dude, I'm a warrior right now, dude. Right. I'm trying to punch people in the face.
That's right. Like, yeah, I can do this. Well, apparently I'm gonna do this, is the way it all came down to it. And so we get there, and of course I'm 110% angry. So
right.
Pretty sure I called my dad just about everything in the book other than dad.
So how long into this trip did he tell you, by the way, we're dropping you off of this Kemper Military Academy?
When we got there.
Really?
Nice.
We're pulling through the gate.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. I remember. Yeah, I got the last meal. I remember I got the
what do you want to eat?
Yeah. I can't remember. We went somewhere and had a nice meal. Man.
Daddy,
got me all
I want is a cheeseburger.
Can I have a cheeseburger and fries, Daddy? And yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, but that's the way I had to be handled. Because you got to think about it. If we would have been in Iowa and they're like, hey, get in the car, you're going to military school, I'd have been like, hey, bye.
No. Yeah.
If you can catch me, good luck, Right. But anyway, so I'm super angry. So I start going through this process, and I can remember sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? I was interested in this anyway. Gonna make the best of this.
So how long did it take you to really be cool with this decision? Like, was it an instantaneous, I'm cool with this, or was this like halfway through I really realized, like, okay.
No, I don't think I even called my dad for like at least a few weeks. I was like, you know what? I'm not talking to you, dude. Like,
how long was this academy?
I was there for it was an entire school year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and which I ended up. They took me out. I ended up not going the entire school year because I was doing really great.
Okay.
Because yet again, I do great in structure. I was doing great in this. I mean, I got in there and. Like, the way that this place was structured was, it was all former Marines who ran this. Okay. They were your what they called TAC officers.
Right. So they had the round browns and they were poking you in the head with it. And
pretty much. And it was, yeah. And it was, I mean, it was strict, dude. You were up at sometimes 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. doing
reveille.
PT for 2.5 hours, putting a big smile on your face, and then go to mess at 7:45. Get through that, meet out on the quad, and do
smoke you for another 5 hours.
Do drill for about another hour before you went to school, and then you had to go to school, and in between each class you had to do drill. And of course, you had mess for lunch, and I mean, it was full system, dude. You had to march around the quad so many times. You had to go past the flag, so like they paraded you. You were every single time you walked out, man. and they were strict on it. And, it was tough at first because, of course, I was clearly having an issue with authority. And what made it even more tough is, see, you have like your senior TAC officers, which were like, our sergeant major was a Marine veteran, and he was just one guy that lived on our floor because they had like your different companies. I was in Delta. They had the Delta Dogs. They had Hotel Company, and then they had Foxtrot. And Delta, on our floor, we had a sergeant major who was a veteran and he had served in Vietnam and Korea. And this guy scared the life out of me,
dude,
and everybody else. Like he, without kidding, he had a plaque on his wall for like, I won't even guess the number, a ridiculous number of hands-on combat kills in Vietnam. He was a very intimidating, scary man. Perfect for that position because he could get a whole bunch of punk teenage boys to listen very quickly. And if you didn't, well, this was back before hazing was against the law. You would get your head put into the wall and you would tell them, "Thank you, sir."
Yeah.
And that's just how that worked. But the rest of the structure of this was kids. Okay. So you could be 16 years old and you could have a 13-year-old in your face telling you what to do because he had seniority. He had been there.
Right.
He had rank. Yeah.
So your birthing units, you're talking about your birthing units. You got, Sergeant Major right there.
Yeah.
They're responsible for you.
Right.
Right. So yes, they're going to be living there.
Yes.
Essentially. It's pretty much boot camp.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Yep.
Yep. And so, your birthing situation, was it a big open bay?
No,
or was it
you had
individual rooms?
Two cadets per room.
Okay.
So it was set up literally like a hotel.
All right.
Like when you walk down the hall, there was just room, and the rooms were
nothing
pretty
like boot camp. But okay,
yeah,
no.
But let's remember, this place was built in the 1840s.
Yeah,
and it had never been updated. I'm not kidding.
Right. So they had radiant heat and nothing else?
That's it.
Right.
As much as you could wrap in a blanket, that's what you got.
Right.
And air conditioning, that didn't exist. You open the window. Yeah. But, so, the living situations it was rough, man. I mean, it really was. It was.
So how was the food? Was the food?
Actually, the food was amazing.
Yeah.
They made really good food there, man. Mess was awesome. That was the best part of my life was mess. Cause it like for real. And they fed us well.
Yeah. Because I mean, every other aspect of this sucks. Well,
right.
The food's good.
We're going to feed you good. We're going to feed you good. And anyway, so, there was just, the structure was difficult to adjust to understand and respect rank. But of course, there's a system and a reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, when you first got there, you're like not wanting to respect any sort of authority at all. So, I can understand why this is going to be a struggle.
That's right.
From the beginning.
That's right. That's right. And you start off just as a cadet. You don't even get to be a corporal. You're a cadet.
You're a slick sleeve.
You are.
I think that's what they called it. You don't have any rank at all.
Nothing
You're a
at all.
sleeve.
Yep. And so you have to work up from that. And this one wasn't as easy, man. If you wanted to move up, you had to put in work. And I mean hard work. Mm-hmm. Like you had to excel in all areas, not just some.
Right.
Because if you failed in one, they'd start you back from the beginning. And that's just how it worked. You're either going to be good at all of it. Oh, dude, it was tough. And that's just the way it was formulated. I mean, and it was effective, but I can remember kids. I mean, like I said, this was a different time for any of you youngins listening. You don't get to cry to mom and dad. You don't get to threaten with, "Oh, I'm going to call the state." They'd hand you the phone.
And let me dial it up for you.
Yeah, this was, hazing was a very real thing. If you didn't keep your mouth shut, you get your butt whooped.
Right.
And it wasn't by the adults. It was by...
Because everybody else is getting smoked.
That's right.
Because you are trying to be an individual.
That's right. Oh, here's a story for you. I remember a kid running his mouth the whole time during PT on a Sunday afternoon after church, which they required us to do, so that was a good thing.
Right.
But after church, they decided that we were going to do about 3 or 4 hours of PT in our Class A's. And because we had PTs, we had, our, whatever they called it, our daily uniform, which was just some gray wool khakis from 1742, and that was like a turtleneck sweater and a blue shirt with your cover,
Right.
and then of course you always had your medals, name tag, ranks, all that. And anyway, and then you had your Class A's. And dude, the Class A's, for those of you out there who have served, I know the struggle, and it's terrible, because that was like wearing a 1937 like Frank Sinatra style down to your ankles wool jacket. And it was hot, and we are out there and they are drilling us, dude. Like, not fun.
We're gonna make it rain outside.
I think we stayed. They had us stay in cover for like an hour, just to see how long you could hold your arm up. Yeah, dude.
Sounds
and then when that arm
familiar.
got tired, they told you dress right, dress. And you got to stand there with the other arm up for an hour.
Right.
And you didn't move. You didn't, you had to ask to scratch your nose. A bee could be stinging you in your eyeball. You'd have to, sir, can I take a hand? And they could say, yeah, go for it. Or if they didn't like you, they'd say, no,
we're good.
nope, you're good. And there was this kid who kept mouthing, dude. So what they ended up doing was they let him go back, put his PT shorts on, sat him in the shade under a tree, and got him a soda, while the rest of us stood there in our Class A's and PT'd for an extra 2 hours.
No.
Yeah, let's just say that night, he didn't have a good night. And never again.
Y'all are gonna pay for this one jelly donut.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned what a blanket party is. That's not a party, and it's
That
not
is
fun.
Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah, just some military terms that I'm sure kind of go across the board.
Yeah, that's not a good situation.
No.
Dude. You get somebody that's a Blue Falcon. That's another
Yeah.
Navy term
Yeah.
right there. Somebody that's going to do their own thing, man. You get punished for that.
Oh, man.
Because, look, man, I'm here. I'm struggling.
Right.
They're beating us relentless.
Yep.
I mean, not beating us physically.
Right.
But, like,
Tearing you down.
yeah, just
Yep.
nothing but push-ups, sit-ups, get on your back, get on your front.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do this, do that. And it's raining inside in the middle of winter because it's so hot in here because all we're doing is exercising.
Right.
They called it pizza parties.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there isn't any pizza and it's not fun. Okay? Like, it's not cool. You don't like it.
Any pizza.
There isn't any pizza. Don't let them fool you. Okay? And the other thing he used to do to us, and I'm not trying to,
No, you're good. You're good.
but they used to be like, we're going to do one jumping jack. And one jumping jack is 1, 2, 3, 1.
Yeah.
And you always get the person that starts again.
Oh, yep.
Oh, now we're going to do
Knocked
two
us out of
jumping jacks.
cadence.
Yeah.
Start over.
Yeah. Now we're going to do 2 jumping jacks. All you have to do is 2 jumping jacks. And we're at like 500 jumping jacks by the end of this because somebody starts again. And it's like, all you had to do was 1 jumping jack.
Right. That's it. That's it.
This is
Just
so
follow
easy.
orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it never ends up being that easy.
Yeah, they used to do a lot of those kind of things to us.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're smoking you guys outside.
Oh yeah.
You guys are struggling. You're so the switch turns, and I'm assuming you start to kind of enjoy this because you said you kind of wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
do
I had
this.
always been athletic. I was turning into a kind of a little beastly type kid. I was like, hey man, I'm good at this stuff. I can handle this stuff. I can shove people around. Maybe I should use that as an authority thing. And I figured out, well, I'm in the right place to do this. So I started, putting in the hard work, man. I mean, you could bounce a brick off my bed, not crease my bed. I had that thing so tight.
Yeah,
you could,
dude. That's good.
You could see your teeth in the toes of my shoes. My room was, my grades were good. My work was hard. My drill was great. I remember winning a couple drill competitions where they I don't know if they ever did that to you guys, and they just drill like you're drilling, and they just call out cadences. And if you make one wrong move, you get tossed out, and it all the way down to the last two guys. And I won a couple of those.
I don't think we never did anything like that.
Yeah, this was just punishment, and it taught us drill.
Right.
But because we did a lot of
facing movements. And
yes,
stuff.
exactly. And so I got good at this, man. I started moving up rank fast. I mean, I didn't even hit. I remember I got promoted right over corporal to private. And that was because there was some situation. I can't even remember exactly what it was. I went above and beyond for something, and somebody put in a recommendation. So I got to skip a rank, and that was cool. Yeah,
that is kind of cool.
And they reward you in these things, like there's a cadet hall, and in the cadet hall, well, there's an officers club, there's a, NCO's area, a CO's area. There's like different, as you moved up, you got more stuff,
right.
More freedom, because you could leave this campus. You could go off campus. You could go into town, but you had to reach certain levels to do that. And so like on
that all comes with trust.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And because what they've done is they've broken you down to the point where now that's all you know.
Right.
And that's just, you're not trying to run. You're not trying to, some kids tried. Nobody was ever successful.
No, dude.
That's, it just, well, because on campus was an actual ROTC right next to us. Okay. Mm-hmm. And these boys were not playing. And that
sounds like the Navy boot camp in Great Lakes was right next to the Marines boot camp in Great Lakes.
Yeah.
And people would jump the wrong fence and end up in Marines boot camp for like a week. They'd let them sit there for a week.
Wow.
And just get nothing but drilled and smoked by the
funny.
Marines.
Yeah.
And then they'd bring them back, and then they'd have to start all over at day one.
That's hilarious.
That's horrible.
That's hilarious. But, I started having a lot of fun with it. Like, we actually did war games.
Right.
They were training us to be soldiers.
Right.
That was the whole purpose of this. Like, all these kids that were in there were headed for the Corps. Or, some of them were headed for the Navy. Some of them, it wasn't just specifically the Corps.
Right.
But that's what their training basis was.
Right.
And, so, like, I started taking some pride in this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, I'm good at this. And I started liking all the medals I had and all the stuff I was earning. And like we did, like I said, the war games and stuff, they'd send us out with paintball guns in the middle of the night. And they owned like 160 acres that were out back that was all wooded. And we trained to fight, and we trained to do this stuff. And I loved it, man. That was my wheelhouse. And so I did really, really great. And by the time I ended up leaving the program, I had reached as a staff sergeant, so I was a squad leader. It was just a lot of fun, man. And even started, if I would have stayed longer, was getting ready to step into platoon sergeant, to step up from squad.
What age were you when you got through some of this?
I was 15. 15
years old, running a squad.
Turned 16. Yeah.
Running a squad.
Yep.
Of people.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were large. You got to figure each platoon, your platoon is your company.
Right.
So I think we had, I'm trying to remember, there was probably about 15, 16 guys per squad, roughly, I don't know, 60 guys per platoon.
I was going to say, that's a lot of responsibility.
Oh, yeah, dude. And it was.
And from a military standpoint, you get smoked for people that are, like, I have no control over.
Right. Right.
But you get smoked because crap rolls downhill.
That's right.
And I'm sure that...
many times that happened. Yeah. I can remember getting disciplined for stuff I had nothing to do with. And then,
that's called good leadership.
Yep. And
okay. Anyway,
but yeah, so I ended up, I was doing so great and everything. And, mom and dad did want me back home. They didn't want me in this place forever, right. And especially, having my sights set on the military one day, it's like, oh, well, probably should get him home and let him enjoy his life and see how this goes. And so I get out, and when I got out, I ended up back at mom's in Des Moines, and things weren't going too bad. Started running around with some kids that I had known from when I was younger, and they weren't bad kids by any means. A couple of them, there's always a couple bad eggs in every bunch. And, I was doing well with my schooling, but I kind of started just getting into this. I was more interested in women and drinking. I still wanted to drink and party. Drugs were never really a big thing for me, so that wasn't really a big.
Besides smoking pot,
smoking some weed, but I never got into the other
heavy
realm
stuff.
of the stuff. I was around it a lot, but alcohol was really kind of my wheelhouse. That was what.
Well, I mean, you can even drinking alcohol at your age is a form of rebellion, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's still like enough of a rush. Like I'm doing
Right.
something I'm not supposed to
Right.
do. When you get older, it's like, man, I got to find other things that give me that rush.
Right.
Because you're able to do more stuff.
Exactly.
So anyway.
So I'm back home, back at school, and things didn't go so bad for about a year. There was about a year there, well, maybe a little less, and, was hanging out with some friends and then started talking to some other friends again from back in Newton, and had gotten a little bit of trouble at home because I did, again, that was a common thing for me, was not wanting to be at home. Like, I never wanted to be at home. I always wanted to be out doing my own thing. So, mom was angry because I was never around.
Was this because you thought you could do better?
I honestly, I don't even know. Like, I don't know what was really pushing me to never want to be there, but I didn't ever want to be there.
Okay,
I didn't ever want to be there, man. I just always had this feeling of like, man, this isn't for me. Like I could be off doing something better, something I want to do.
Right.
And so, and I think there was still a lot of animosity towards both of my parents over the divorce and everything.
Right.
My dad was still with this woman that I just could not stand. My mom had met a man that I actually got along with, so that wasn't an issue, and she's still with him today. My stepdad, he's a good guy. We get along. But I just never wanted to be around any of them. I think I held a lot of grudges and probably still, in a sense, have some of those little bits of animosity, but I've forgiven and try to move forward on that. But what really screwed me up, and actually I say it screwed me up, but the big kicker was running with some of these kids. We were partying, and I was 16. Oh man, like 2 months before I turned 17.
Okay.
2 months before I turned 17. This was the big one that could have really screwed up my entire life. Cruising around with some not so intelligent folks, and we got pulled over, and unbeknownst to me, the passenger in the car had thrown a gun out of the window. And seriously,
handgun or what?
A handgun, yep, a pistol.
Okay.
Well, the cops get us, they arrest us, and because I didn't know the passenger or the
Right.
driver. I knew the two other dudes I was in the back seat with, who knew them, and they were all pals. Well, I was always taught not to be a snitch.
Right.
I was always taught not to do that. That was
Snitches get stitches.
right. That just wasn't who I was, man.
Right.
Mine or not, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. So I ended up taking accountability in the situation. When, I remember going to the police department. They're like, well, what about a gun? I'm like, well, what gun? I didn't have a gun. Did you find a gun on me? Because I didn't have one.
Right. Somebody planted it.
Right. Like, I don't have one.
Right.
And, at that time, they didn't care.
Right.
Everybody got in trouble. Everybody. We're a bunch of punk kids. So ended up going to Eldora State Training School for Boys here in Iowa. Charged with possession of an illegal firearm or no, how'd they word it? Because they couldn't prove it was in my possession. I can't remember how it was worded. But anyway, so ended up at Eldora State Training School.
So now this is like a juvenile detention center.
Yes, it's a juvenile detention center. It's pretty much your next step to prison. And
if you were old enough, you would have gone to prison.
Well, yeah, that's right. I was close enough to age. They very well could have charged me as an adult. And the judge made that very clear. Wow. And he was like, so here's your options. You can either, because at first when I went in front of him, I'm like, well, you're an idiot. I didn't do anything wrong. And this isn't my problem, you know? Mm-hmm. And then when he's like, well, here's your choices. You're either going to plead guilty and you're going to go to this program, or I'm going to try you as an adult. You can take it to trial, but I'll try you as an adult.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
this was the first offense with this kind of thing, right? But you said you've been...
Oh, yeah. I had a minor criminal history for breaking windows. I was with a buddy of mine who stole a pair of shoes from a store one time. But this is
obviously escalating.
Yes, exactly.
And so the judge, I mean, you said you've been in front of the judge before.
Yep. Yeah.
So he was trying to curb that.
I think that's what he was probably trying to do, and was trying to give me a very real option, you know, because he used to always, every time I got in front of him, he's like, you're not stupid. I don't know why you're acting stupid. You know, you're making stupid choices. And so he gave me the option, and of course, you know, I took it and ended up in Eldora. And this really could have been, like, a lot of people are like, oh man, you know, you're going to a detention center, you screwed your whole life up. It actually ended up being the best thing that could have happened to me, because, not even kidding, the group of kids that I was, and this is not me making it up, by the grace of God, the group of kids that I was running around with in all my free time, not even a week later, were involved in a massive explosion of a meth lab in Newton. 2 of them were burnt up to a crisp.
Wow.
And not that I would have been a part of that, because I wasn't ever cool with that stuff.
Right.
But it doesn't mean I wouldn't have been there.
Right.
You know,
that is God's grace.
That's like, right.
You know,
and I mean, it was, I remember my dad getting a hold of me and telling me that. And I'm like, oh, you're full of it. You know, I didn't believe him. I was like, you're just trying to scared straight me, you know?
Yep.
And no, it was very real. And it was a bad deal, man. A lot of people got hurt. Couple of them almost died. Two of them are bound to wheelchairs for their whole lives. They have no fingers. Okay. They have no ears. They have no.
That's not good.
I mean, it's bad.
So you're at 17-ish.
You just turned 17.
You know, I mean, the military is becoming an option at this point.
Right.
So, you know, did you ever really have any sort of like inkling? I know that you enjoyed as much as you can enjoy being punished in a military academy. Right. Did you ever really have any sort of inkling to, man, I want to join a branch of the military?
Oh, absolutely. That's for sure what I wanted to do. That's, my family on both sides, the Garza side and my Taylor or Piper side, you know, whichever way you want to, high regard for our country and for servicemen and women. I mean, I got family on both sides that have served. My great grandfather on my dad's side, he was buried as a colonel, because before he died, he was a lieutenant colonel, but he was buried as a colonel. He was in the Air Force. Plane was shot down. Big long story to that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he was highly decorated.
So eventually you kind of come out of this jail, penitentiary kind of
Yes. Well, in the plus side in all of this, and just to kind of wrap up for this episode, but just
I was trying to get to a certain point.
What the reason it was so beneficial was, number one, it helped me realize, wow, I'm an idiot and I need to stop. before I do end up in big boy jail.
So you started to realize, man, I need to get a hold of this.
I started
thing.
taking some accountability for my actions and for the way I was, and because I always summed it up. Well, I didn't do it; it's the people I'm around. Well,
was there anybody in that facility that kind of helped illuminate that in your life, or was there?
Oh yeah,
God,
dude.
I mean, like, could you pinpoint, like, man, God started talking to me?
Yeah, no, dude.
At this point,
something that I appreciated was. This was before we started worrying about everybody's emotions and opinions. We were made to go to church on Sundays at Eldora. And Pastor Pat, and I wish I could remember his last name, and I've even called up there to try to locate this guy because he was a huge factor in it, man. I don't know, just the way, like, he truly was there for God had put him there.
Right.
Like, this dude was doing his job. And doing it well. The worship was amazing. His messages just really resonated with me, and just was really a great leader.
Right.
And I mean, and then I ended up doing my program to finish my high school education while I was there, because by the time I was going to get out, I was supposed to be graduating.
So was this a GED or is this a legit?
No, high school education. Yes, they work with the high school you were attending. And so in the meantime, just to earn some college credit, I also took a welding certification. I got a basic welding tech certification, and because they're trying to prepare you for the world.
Right.
And so
get you into a trade or something that's
right.
More constructive.
Oh yeah, they had like diesel mechanic, small engines, residential carpentry, which I'm surprised I didn't go into that. But
looking back now,
right. But and welding,
right.
And then I think they had like a culinary arts program. But I got my education while I was there, or finished it at least, and got a little excess to my education to further it.
All right, so I'm going to stop you there.
All right.
So we've gone through a lot of trouble.
Yep.
And we've gone through the academy for Marines, the Marines Academy.
Yep.
And that was a whole summer. That was a whole school year
yep.
deal, and everything escalated when you got back. You kind of fell in with the same crowd. You started to roughen it up again, started getting a little bit crazy, and then you ended up in jail.
Yep.
For kids.
Yep. Pee-wee jail.
Pretty much. So we'll stop it there, and we'll kind of pick up next time. But I believe that, Dave, it is actually your turn to pray out this time. So
is it my turn to pray out?
Yeah.
I mean, I can pray out.
I mean, it kind of felt like that.
No. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys here in another few days.
Yeah, man. I really enjoy the story so far, man. You talked about how I had a 4-part series and how I could go into so much detail, and it's like you're doing just as good as I'm doing. So
there's still a lot of story. So
I know. There's a lot. There's a lot to be said, and I don't think people really realize how in-depth their story actually is until they get into the point where I'm asking you questions.
Right.
And it's like, man, I remember this time or that time or whatever, you know? So this has been really good, dude.
Yeah.
Good.
Really, really good.
Only 98 episodes to go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Only 98 more.
666 more to go.
Don't put that label on me.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you again here in a few days. Father God, I just thank you for this opportunity to be able to share my story. And Lord, I just hope that, in all of our fun and kind of the way I describe a lot of these things may not be completely the right way to talk about it. But Lord, I hope that you can use it to penetrate someone's heart that maybe is listening and be able to use this to build them up or maybe to just even encourage them to be bold and transparent and share their own story. And just know that, each of us have our own individual story, Lord, and as much as we may think that it's not going to be an impact or that it's boring or that it doesn't have any meaning to it, everybody's story has meaning. And I just thank you that you walked with me through mine and that you continue to. And I just hope that if anything anybody takes out of this is that they just see that, God, that you walk with us even in the moments that we're completely turned away from you. And even as we rebel against you or we ignore your voice and your guidance, that you're still just waiting, just telling us to come home. Just come back home. And Lord, if anybody out there needs that tonight, Lord, I just pray that you just touch their heart. I just thank you for all this opportunity that you give us on this podcast. And I thank you for all of the people that you've put in our path that are just being such a blessing to everything that's going on. And just thank you for these men that I get to serve your kingdom. And thank you for everybody else that's just been so encouraging, Father. Just build them up too. And show them that as much as they encourage us, Lord, we want to be an encouragement to them too. And we just thank you for all these opportunities, Lord. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, guys. We're going to head out for this time, guys. But we hope that you are blessed.
Yeah.
And that you have a great week.
All right.
That's
have
right.
a great week.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.